Hope everybody's having a good day so far, wherever you're at. and I just wanted to share a little bit about why some people around the world are feeling upset, frustrated, or disgruntled even with their government, and why things are happening the way they are. And first of all, let's read Romans chapter 13, that famous passage that we all know, and some have maybe misunderstood it to some degree. But let's just read it. It says, let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. Whosoever therefore resisteth the power resisteth the ordinance of God, and they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation, meaning judgment. Verse 3 says, for rulers are not a terror to good works, but to evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. So in other words, if you do what's right, you don't have to worry. You'll, receive good praise and recommendation from those of higher degree, so to speak. But verse 4 says, for he is the minister of God, referring to police officers in those days, the soldiers they had who carried the sword, who served the king. Verse 4 says, for he is the minister of God to thee for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid, for he beareth not the sword in vain. Again, referring to what we nowadays in our modern day police officers. For he is the minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. Wherefore you must need be subject, not only for wrath, but also for conscience sake. For this cause pay also tribute, for they are God's ministers, attending continually upon this very thing. Render therefore all their dues, tribute to whom tribute is due, custom to whom custom, fear to whom fear, and honor to whom honor. Now, we understand according to the Bible that we are to honor authority. We are to honor those who God has, because God has created government for a reason, so that there wouldn't be anarchy and total Mad Max world. And we are to honor those in leadership in that degree. However, when those who don't honor their positions in those roles that they have been either elected for, such as sheriff, or put in place of a politician or president, some type of leader, world leader, work in one of these alphabet agencies, which are all corrupt, and from the head down. And even some officers, which there's a lot of great police officers out there. There are police officers also who don't do so well, and they're not good. So, but just because you have a few officers who do bad things don't mean all are bad. That's just like saying all doctors are bad just because you have a few bad doctors, or all ministers are bad just because a few are greedy for money, or sleeping with some woman or man, or messing with children in a congregation. Not every minister is crooked and want money and hungry for the person's money and up to no good. Not every police person is corrupt or bad. You have to look at everybody on an individual basis. Now, I'll come back to that in just a minute, but I want to say this. The reason you have a lot of these riots going on around the world, in China, in Brazil, in Pakistan, in Iran. In Iran, they're protesting their government right now because of religious oppression. And a young teenage girl was beat to death. Some were killed because they didn't want to wear the burqa or wear the, scarf over their head and cover their face. They wanted freedom. They didn't want to be oppressed. And because they were treated like dogs and abused and persecuted, so to speak, the people rose up and began to protest. However, we know that some protests turns into riots and get violent. Should it ever get violent? No. It shouldn't. I'm going to come back to that in just a minute, though. Because Ecclesiastes says there is a time and place for everything. Well, what do you mean by that? Hang with me just a minute. You have over in Brazil people who are upset because they see the corruption in their electoral process, just like other countries. You have to watch what you say on YouTube because they're in sync and in line and subservient to this government here. You have people that are out protesting in Brazil peacefully. Some got more rowdy and they're locked up. Some without even any proof and put in these type of internment camps. No date to see the judge, nothing. Treated just like January 6th. You have, and the media won't show you all that. Remember that. The media will not show you the things I just mentioned. Why? Because they're just as guilty and they go right along with all of the corruption. This is why they are ordered to cover all this stuff. And number one or two, they don't want the people here or wherever to get any ideas. No. Don't you dare get any ideas. Why? Because we want people to obey, comply, and be subservient. We don't want them to rise up. Okay, hang with me. China, once again, doing this zero COVID policy and welding doors shut, forcing their people to stay in, hauling them off to these different COVID camps. Oh, I can show you the videos. Hang on a second. Okay, so they're speaking in Chinese saying, stay home, follow orders, or we will arrest you. And that's dealing with the zero COVID policy that they're trying to implement. Once again, starting all of this crap and all of this nonsense because they're trying to oppress their people over something that makes no sense. They're just doing this just because they want to do it. And so the Chinese, again, it's like, here we go again, locking us in, and they're trying to make us feel like we are, guide us in the cattle pens like, cattle or sheep. And here's another one. Now, people just had enough of all this tyranny. People around the world have enough of all this corruption, and they're getting sick of it. So as you see in China there, they were revolting. They were talking about you need to be locked up. Certain cities, I don't know if it's Beijing or Wuhan, about 25 million people. And 25 million people, they expect them to comply. Dogs walking through, those little robotic dogs created by Boston Dynamics. Some say DARPA helped with that project, probably, corrupt from the head down. But Boston Dynamics created these robots, and so the Chinese implemented and they hijacked or reverse engineered that model. And they had these dogs walking through the town saying "chung chang ching chang chong hui hui hui," and it was trying to say in their language, "Stay in the house." My Chinese is bad, but seriously, you have United States government entities, groups, organizations, branches of government, DHS, DOD. They have plans. Went to their website, and I think I did a video about this. I have to see which video I put it to, where they have sections of emergency lockdown areas that they can lock you down, just in regard or in case of an emergency. No, I don't think so. They try to say, oh, well, it's for your good, or it's because of this and because of that we need to lock things down and shut things off. And but you have to understand, these people always have a wicked and corrupt reason why they're trying to do what they're trying to do. They haven't implemented it yet because they know, number one, they know, number one, in America, we all still have guns. And rightfully so. And this is why, when the Revolutionary War was fought to gain independence from Great Britain, which was declared in 1776, our independence, the leaders or the founders of the Constitution made sure and declared, that this is a government for the people, by the people. So we elect those in leadership. And the government is not God, but we put people there to serve us, not to serve them. But the problem is, especially with a lot of these politicians or politicians today, and we need more good politicians, is that some who spend longer terms in office feel like we owe them or we should serve them. And then they have all these shady deals, all this corruption, and they create these different bills, as some are even trying to pass today, that you wouldn't even believe that they sneak into these big $1 trillion bills and $1 billion bills that will just take away from us, destroy our country, would either oppress us, take away our rights, bills created to take away our freedoms, and yet we don't know about it because they slide them and sneak them through under the table. And all these different healthcare bills, that one that Obama tried to pass years ago, and Nancy said, oh, well, you just we gotta pass it and then we can read and see what's in it to find out. Of course, you devil, of course you want to just pass it, then read later to see what it is. 15, 30,000, 50,000 page bills, because they're all wicked and corrupt. Oh, and guess what? The bills don't apply to them. Rules for thee, not for me, because I'm special and we are elite and we're above the law. Yes, we're above the law, and our crap don't stink because they're holy, they're righteous, they're lifted up on high, and you are the peasant, you are the slave, and we're going to become rich off of your dollar. And matter of fact, we're going to raise your taxes even in a godforsaken fallen economy, and we're still going to raise your taxes. Hey, and guess what? We're going to give ourselves raises, every single one of us, Republican and Democrat alike. And guess what? we're going to also, with the help of all these other offshore entities, try to engineer all of these different viruses. Oh, did you hear about Pfizer? Did you hear about what one of the top guys admitted, that it was created in who's the conspiracy theorist now? Got to be careful again, YouTube. Right, because they're on their knees, bent over for the government. So they are subservient to the government. Social media in cahoots with the government. So they're going to censor you. They're going to shut you up. They're going to ban your videos. But the thing is that you see, you have to, there's a time when people abuse their power, then there's a time to stand up, just like the people did in China. They had enough. And there is a time for everything. As Ecclesiastes said, a time for this, a time for that. You read the verse yourself. You read the chapter. Ecclesiastes chapter 3. There's a time to stand up. Because, you know, it gets to the point where it's one thing to rule righteously and we obey and honor government. But at the same time, now I'm not saying march into the Capitol and take over with guns and all of this stuff. That's not what I'm saying. Now, it may come down to that one day. It may come down to a civil war. It may come down to another time where there may be a 1776. It may just come to that when there's no other options. And if so be, then that's just the way it has to be. Because we were never meant to be ruled and lorded over. God, we pray that never happens. But the longer or the more a power a government gets, the more corrupt it becomes. I'm going to say it again. The more power a government gets, the more corrupt it becomes. Let me say it again. The more power government gets, the more corrupt it becomes. Do you understand? Get that through your head. The more power government gets, the more corrupt it becomes. And so this is why when, even, they'll say, well, we got to pass all these acts and we got to lock everything down and create martial law because of this and that, just to lock you in your house. And this is why they're talking about at the United Nations, well, we need to get all the people on board. Antonio Guterres, right? The guy over the, right now acting top guy in the United Nations, General Secretary of the United Nations, said, well, we need to create, look into locking people down for the sake of the climate. It's all about the climate. World Economic Forum, placing leaders and puppets in different positions of power across the world as far as presidents and prime ministers that will be subservient to their one world order agenda. Like Rishi Sunak, who's placed in over there in the UK right now, or the one who all of the people from Sri Lanka, because of a failing economy, went and stormed that house, their version of their White House, right, or their presidential house or palace, by the thousands, and ran that joker out. Ran that booger out. He was running with his little bag and briefcase like he was running to catch a plane at the airport. And he got on that boat and sailed away. I don't know who they replaced or put in there, but hey, they were showing pictures of the people, the citizens of Sri Lanka, taking pictures in the presidential palace by the thousands because they were fed up of corruption. Why he's living high off the hog. And all of these people are suffering. No gasoline, no food, no this, no that. And people are getting disgruntled and fed up. So, of course, Romans 13, you betcha. But there may come a time. And if the military, I'm going to address the military. And this is worldwide, but I'm dealing with America especially. Anyone who's in the military who will go along with corruption, and let me include police officers and deputy sheriffs and sheriffs. Sheriffs act independently because they're elected by the people, not by the government, not put in there by the government. If you go along as military and police officers to aid and abet corrupt criminals and organizations, from politicians to corrupt police chiefs to even some corrupt sheriffs. If you go along as the deputies and the police officers of the street who survey and keep order in the land, if you as military personnel follow corrupt generals who would say go and round up people and put them in internment camps, you are just as much the enemy as they are. And whatever happens beyond that point, then that's whatever will be. Because you have chose a side for a paycheck and for the sake of a few dollars to feed your family and your mouths, that you would serve evil. So this is about doing what's right morally. This is about standing for what's righteous, what's moral, what's correct, and what's godly. So whenever you abuse your power and authority, thinking that, oh, well, we're just trying to keep calm and peace. No, you're really working for the enemy. I want you to understand that. You are siding with the enemy. And so I want you to know right now, look no further than all of these people on the CNNs, the MSNBCs, and all these other channels that are, these Democrats, and that are talking about terrorists, and if you don't do this, you're racist, and all of this. Both sides are corrupt. Are there some good Republicans? Of course, but for the most part, it's all one bird with one red wing, one blue wing. It's just corruption on both sides. I mean, mostly on the left, but the thing is that corruption is corruption and evil is evil, and you have to stand for what's right. You just got to. Says your enemy is not in Russia, but at home. As I was saying, look no further than home. When you want to know who the enemy is, when you want to know those who are passing bills that will oppress, make you poor, would enslave you, would use the military against you in any way, and this is why they have asked some in the military at times, would you be willing to fire on American citizens? Many said no. Some said yes. Look at the criminals right here, Republican and Democratic alike, and I can go through a ton of stories on each and every one of these individuals. Some stacks up higher than others. But let me tell you something. Your enemy is not there. The terrorist is right here. And right now, with Biden in office, he controls the most corrupt criminal organization there is to date, and the media, the mainstream media, covers for them, even though they said, they raided Hunter Biden's house right now. Do you see the mainstream media talking about it? Do you see them giving mass coverage? Do you see them going nonstop and not shutting up about it? No. Did you see them talking about and showing all the protests going on around the world in Brazil and Iran and China? No, because they're all for impovering or poverty or oppressing and enslaving the people. They're all for tyranny. They're all for big government. You see what I'm saying? The enemy is right here. You don't have to look no further. These are the terrorists. The FBI is just as corrupt as the CIA. You may have a few good ones in there, and there's a lot who are speaking out. But if you dare speak out, then they come against those who speak out, which many have spoke out, against the corruption from Merrick Garland, coming against Christians, coming against pro-lifers, but allowing people like James Revenge to go around and destroy pro-life places that will help people to keep a baby or show them alternative means. They don't prosecute them, but they prosecute good doers. These are the corrupt, evil demons that are evil in your enemy. I just want you to keep that in mind. So when it comes to as having to take a stand and to fight for your rights, if it came down to that, never, ever, 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 ever infinity times ever, give up your guns. Allow the government to ransack your house, to take your kids away from you, haul you guys off into separate areas. Remember, some people say history don't repeat itself. It has in some cases. Well, that's what they're trying to do now. The people that hate you having guns are these people, like these people right here, that are tyrants. The people that hate you being armed and protecting yourself. And this is why we have our Second Amendment, so that we wouldn't have any Maos, so that we wouldn't have any Stalins, so that we wouldn't have any Hitlers that killed millions and millions and millions and millions of their own people, so that we could defend ourselves. Because communists, like those who killed all theirs, are the same communists right here that hate you having your weapons and hate you having the ability. And the reason why the Second Amendment was created is so that you could stand up for yourself. Say if there ever be a time where another dictator, a Hitler, a Stalin, or a Mao rose up, the people could rightfully protect and defend themselves as a whole. But these people right here in this country and worldwide have to learn how to come together if that day ever came. And as I say, I pray it never comes, but we don't know. But we want to do as much as we can to live peaceably in love and pray and turn to God and trust Him. So I say that from the deepest roots of my heart. It's all about peace, and I'm all about peace, and it's all about obeying and honoring the government as long as they're doing right. But when the government turns to full tyranny, there is no more biblical obligation. Romans 13 goes out the window, baby. It's over with. It's done. Other than that, obey the government. God bless you.